So what you can expect from this course is this is going to be you and me working together. I'm going to be taking you the same way I would take you if you were in a live certification with me. So everything that we would need, from the mindfulness, the breath, to warming up properly, to flow and how we can program it, all that is going to be here. So you're going to get to know me pretty well, unless you turn me off, but that's probably not going to happen. So, all right. So as we get into this, the first thing that we're going to be focused on is awareness. Okay. Again, going back to that being an intentional mover. And the first place that we can be intentional of and focused on and internally focused on is our breath. This is one of the most underutilized areas in your training, and really it's the key to everything. This is the key to more work capacity. This is the key to more strength, a lot more endurance, and just allows you to get more from that workout. You know, you're going to gas out a lot faster if you're just focused on trying to get the heaviest bell up or trying to finish that workout. But we always want to come back to the breath. You're going to get a lot more from this. So before we even do any kind of warm up, before we're doing anything else, we're going to talk about the breath. Now, you can expand on this to much, much deeper levels. You can go a lot further with this in your session. I want you to take away as well from this is that each session is going to be different. You're not going to necessarily have a block of 10 minutes of focusing on your breath, a block of 10 minutes of mobility. It's going to vary day to day. So I'm going to take you through a more expanded version, and then you can shorten it or expand or go even further with it as you feel fit. So as we go through the breath, I always take my clients through at least a couple minutes of just some breath work just to get aware of their breath. Because for the most part, most people that come through, they've never even thought about it. They just, yeah, of course I'm breathing, I'm alive, right? But in order to really, really understand that and get more from the breath, we have to now be aware of it. So what I want you to do, we're going to start off by getting into a nice tall stance, and we're going to always come back to position. You're going to get annoyed as how many times I'm going to come back to certain cues, because I want to hammer these into you so that way you in turn will start to remember them, and then we'll be able to coach them even better. So we're getting into a nice tall stance. We're not getting into necessarily athletic stance because I'm not getting into a slight knee flexion. I'm going to stay pretty straight. I want you to imagine a rope to the top of your head pulling you to the ceiling. So always maintain this nice posture. Elevated chest, but without overly rounding, without overly expanding. We're just keeping it nice and straight. So we want to avoid any kind of kyphotic position. We don't want to be rounding. So from right here now, we're going to focus everything to the midsection. As we breathe, most people when they breathe, they chest breathe. And that gets you into that fight or flight. We get into that parasympathetic position where we're like, oh, I get a little bit elevated, and we want to lower that as much as possible, especially as we start to elevate our heart rate and to elevate that stress with the workout. So we want to drop down, and now we're just focusing on the trunk. We're just focusing on the breath. Now from here, let's talk about the diaphragm. So diaphragmatic breathing is how we're going to be performing pretty much every one of these movements, and I'll touch on anatomical breathing in a second. With diaphragmatic breathing, we're breathing through the diaphragm. It's this big, meaty muscle that's right underneath our rib cage, and it's really a powerhouse that's going to, again, give us more strength, more endurance, and it's going to allow us to oxygenate our body much better than if we're chest breathing. So the way you can tell if someone's chest breathing is if their chest is moving or their shoulders are shrugging and rising. So we want to have as little movement as possible in that upper body or in the upper part of our trunk and just focus right into our belly. So typically what you'll see and what you'll hear is belly breathing. And what belly breathing is we're breathing into the diaphragm. So a good example of that is if you ever watch a baby sleeping, you can see their bellies rise as they inhale and fall as they exhale. So that's the same idea I want you to have, but rather than thinking outward, I want you to think 360 degrees. So when you breathe in, you're not just breathing out into your belly, trying to protrude your belly as much as possible. We're trying to expand everything through the trunk 360 degrees. So as you breathe in, first and foremost, let's just practice belly breathing. If you've never done it before, go ahead and put your hand right in your belly, and then you can put your other hand right in your lower back. So we'll start off with forward progression here. So as you breathe in, you're going to have your belly protrude just so you can feel that. So I want you to breathe in and feel that breath expand into your belly, not moving the chest at all. And as you exhale, you can feel your belly come down. So as you do that a couple times, you get that feel, and you can feel immediately what it does to your mentality. You feel better when you breathe right. And now I want you to think as you're doing that same position, but now that breath is expanding 360 degrees, ultimately keeping that tension around the core and, again, keeping your spine safe. That's really the reason for this type of breathing, not only to expand our workouts and allow us to go further, but also to keep our spine safe. Because if the musculature around the spine is strong and I can breathe through that tension, then as I get into these different positions, regardless if I'm adding rotation, flexion, whatever, I'm going to stay safe. My spine's going to stay safe. So going back to that breath. Now let's talk a little bit about the pelvis as we're doing this. I want you just to maintain a neutral pelvis. So we'll talk a little bit more about positioning, but I want you just to get aware of these different positions before we even pick up the bell. And this is where awareness is so important. You know, as a coach or even as a user, we're so programmed to just want to do the movement, do the thing as fast as possible without being aware of the positions. And I'm going to say awareness a lot as we go through this. So as we go through the belly breathing, now going down to the hips and just maintaining a neutral hip position, neutral pelvis. So what does that mean? This is an anterior where I get a nice arch in my lower back. This is a posterior where I'm getting glutes engaged, trunk is engaged. So just right in between as we're standing here. Going back to that breathing. So now we're going to practice this breath. So we're going to go ahead and time it just for about 10 seconds. Drop the shoulders, drop your hands, and just focus on the breath. 360 degrees all the way around. Ultimately making sure that the shoulders and the chest do not rise, do not move, just the belly. Let's go one more. And relax. All right. So a lot of different ways that we can practice that, and we can expand on that as we go. And if you're having a session where you just don't feel like working out, I promise if you incorporate some breath work before your session, or you incorporate this with your clients before or after, they are going to probably pay you more because they are going to feel really good. So that's a really important thing that we want to practice. All right, so the next way, if someone is not getting that, they're not feeling it, the next thing we can do, the next step is we could take it to the ground. So what we'll do is we'll get on our backs. So once I'm down on the ground, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to let my legs extend. I'm going to let them open up naturally. I'm just going to relax. And this is an easier way to feel and to really breathe into that belly, into that lumbopelvic area, the entire downstairs area. I know it sounds weird to breathe in there, but that's going to, again, allow you to increase that tension, especially as we start getting ballistic and start doing a lot of flows and rotational work. So once we're down on the ground, one hand is going to go underneath the lower back, one hand is going to go on the belly, and now we can really take the pressure off the chest. We're taking, obviously, the pressure off the feet, and we're just focusing on this area. So I'm going to breathe in and out. Now we can feel that hand rise and fall. And now as we're doing this, even though now we're just focusing on 360 degrees, we can still see where that breath is going. We can feel where that breath is going. So again, it makes us much more aware. So for someone who's not understanding that, they're still getting the chest breath, I like to bring them down to the ground. And this gives them a much easier cue, a much easier way to practice that breathing. So that's diaphragmatic breathing. That is how we can breathe through the belly. Now, what we want to incorporate, we're going to incorporate that breathing through the point of exertion. So we want to breathe out through that point of exertion. Again, not focusing on the chest and shoulders, but all through the belly. All right, so now we're going to practice breathing through tension. So this is another important thing I want you to get from this is you're not going to be tense the entire time. It's impossible. That's great if you're doing one particular max rep lift, but not if you're going to be trying to flow and move with the kettlebell. So we're going to have to learn how to blend that fluidity and tension and really marry them almost together so they're almost simultaneous, so that way you stay safe but can still move through a wide range of motions. So what we're going to do is we're now going to just get into that nice tall stance. Now we're going to get into a slight posterior tilt, slight knee flexion, so slight bend in the knees, drop the shoulders. So all we're going to do is we're going to breathe through tension. So first thing I want you to do is we're going to flex our hands as hard as we can. I want you to flex, 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 still breathing through that tension. And when I say release, we're going to shake it off. Ready, set, and release. Just shake it out. But still keeping that breath, still keeping that core engaged. When I say we're going to go right back to that tension, but this time we're going to go up a little bit higher. We're going to go up into the arms. Ready, set, and tense. Breathing through that tension. Breathe. Not letting that chest rise and relax. And we'll talk a little bit about this afterwards. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to flex the chest, upper back, arms, everything from the hands up into the upper trunk. Ready, set, and flex. Oh my gosh, lats are engaged, chests are engaged. Feeling that pump. Not letting the shoulders rise and relax. Shake it out. Keep breathing. Keep focusing on that breath, focusing on that 360 degrees. And next we're going to flex everything from the hips up. While I'm saying that, we're still not flexing the face. We're still smiling. And flex. Oh. You can feel that tension start to travel through different places, which we'll talk about as well. Breathing through that tension and relax. Move it around. Lastly, we're going to tense every single muscle in your body from your neck down to your toes. Ready, set, and flex. Flex, flex, flex. We're going to go back and forth very quickly through this. Ready, and release. Flex. Release, flex, release, and I'm a little out of breath. That was hard. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to understand how to breathe through the tension, how to move through that tension. And also, let's discuss another important part here as we do this. So what happened when you flexed one particular position? You notice that law of irradiation, those neighboring muscles start to flex. You can't flex just one particular muscle. You are not just an assortment of muscles. Everything connects together, and you can notice how different areas flex and tighten a little bit more as you flex. So if you're flexing your arm, you're starting to feel your lat engage. As you flex your lat, you start to feel your glute engage. As your glute engages, your quad starts to engage. So everything is connected. And this is important once you get into max lifts, once you're lifting something heavy, but also as you start to get into flows. As we start to get into these multi-directional patterns, you're going to see how you're going to have everything kind of blend together and marry together and flex at different, separate, all at the same time in order to keep you safe and keep you secure. Again, there's a lot more to the breath. I just want to give you just enough to get aware of the breath and some simple cues and simple things that you can use with your clients. So the way that you can program this in is at the beginning of every session and at the end of every session. Practice some breath work. So that way you have your client feel aware of this. This is going to spark your central nervous system. It's going to warm you up faster than just about anything. And ultimately, it's going to make you feel really damn good. And that is one thing I get from every time we do every time we do a workshop. After the breath work, everyone's like, oh, I just feel good. So let's give that to our clients.